A very warm welcome to everyone present here. I'm Geeta Chavra, your host and resource person for the webinar today on Roadmap to Make a Good Question Paper. Before I begin, I would like to thank Matthew sir for giving us this wonderful platform of AIEF through which we are able to interact and collaborate with fellow educators and learn so much from each other. And I'm very glad that Matthew sir is with us. So before we go on progress with the webinar for what we are here, I would like him to speak a few words. Matthew sir, please. He's my mentor and a great person.
So first of all, thank you so much for volunteering to take such an important topic on competency-based questions, because this was the random questions which were pouring in from the different groups, and you are the best person to do this because you are the principal of a school and you are a resource person and a master trainer on the subject. And I'm sure the participants today are looking forward to this session, and this is going to be a very insightful session. And today, especially when CBSE has released the CBSE sample papers, I think today's session is all the more significant because half the year is over and we have the remaining half year. And I think we need to make good question papers in the coming periodic tests so that our students are prepared. And if we want to prepare our students, our teachers need to be prepared. So I want to thank Geeta ma'am on behalf of All India Educators Forum. And I want to welcome all the participants for today's workshop. And I'm sure it's going to be a very interesting and insightful session. Over to you, Geeta ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Even I would like to thank you, sir, first, because you've given us such a platform by which you are able to tell everybody everything, learn from each other. And when you found that there were so many questions pouring in on different topics, you triggered, you motivated, you initiated this webinar once again. I think it was a hiatus of 4 to 6 months. Not many webinars were happening. And you immediately started this in the group that we must take up webinars on the specific topics because there are people who need attention. And all the resource person, of course, came forward. And I came across as the first one to start the series of webinar. So I would like all the participants to know that All India Education Forum has started this initiative. Every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at 6 p.m. You'll find one or the other webinar at one or the other topic. And most of your doubts will be cleared. Most of the things that you want to know would be cleared. So now, without taking much of the time, I would start with my presentation, the fact for which we are here. I hope you all can see my screen.
Yes, ma'am, we can see.
I'll just stop annotations and then start. There we go. All right. So once again, welcome to one and all for this webinar on Roadmap to Setting a Good Question Paper as per the new assessment pattern. CBSE has just released the sample papers, and there's a lot of excitement plus relief for the teachers of class 10th and 12th, because now they have a parameter, a benchmark of what kind of question paper they have to make for their upcoming first terms and later on pre-boards and so on. But all other teachers of all other classes still need guidance. And despite the fact that we have a sample paper, we need to understand the basis for that sample paper. Please mute yourself. So 2020, besides bringing the pandemic, which changed our lives, brought in many new things, and one was NEP. So NEP 2020 brought a complete revolution in the school education system. It brought change in the curriculum, the teaching learning process, the teaching methodology and pedagogy, evaluation and assessment. Curriculum, we all know, the syllabus was in the CBSE site, and in other classes, they have the textbook in hand, so they know the new curriculum that they have to follow. Teaching learning process changed. Now the focus now was not on the content, but the concept. The shift was from focusing on content to the concept. We need to make a child understand the concept. I'll take just a few minutes to explain this. For example, in the kindergarten classes, the pre-primary classes, we teach them object description. So what we teach them is, rather than making them memorize 5 lines on pencil, 5 lines on the sun, 5 lines on the moon, 5 lines on eraser, bottle, tiffin, what we do is, if we teach them the concept that as soon as you look at any object, the first thing you have to do is tell the name of the object. You can tell the shape, then you can tell the color, then you can tell the use. So if you tell these 4 or 5 points to the child, even if a kindergarten child, 4 or 5-year-old, if you teach this concept, then any object you place in front of the child will be able to understand and explain, describe, speak 4 lines on it. That is the shift from content to concept. Teaching methodology, pedagogy has changed. It has become more child-centric. There'll be many more webinars on it. Already we had many webinars in NEP 2020 webinars. Many more webinars will be on teaching methodology and pedagogy. But the essence of every webinar is it has to be child-centric. One, the teacher has to teach according to how the child understands. She might have to use 3 or 4 processes, 3 or 4 methods to make the same thing explained, because every child is unique and they will be able to understand it some different concept. And last is evaluation and assessment, for which I'll be dealing in detail, because the shift is from content to concept. Evaluation also has to be that concept based, which would check the competency. Now, competency word is so much in the air, but how much of it is in the head? Because there's so much spoken about it that then there's so much of confusion also. So I wanted to make it very, very clear. Before I come to the evaluation and the assessment, I just want to make this word competency very clear to you all. So competency-based education is an approach to teaching, learning, and assessment that focuses on the students' demonstration of learning outcomes and attaining proficiency in particular competencies in each subject. You know, they should be able to demonstrate, show what they have learned. It empowers the students. It gives them a positive learning experience. You know, it places the learning in the center, and all the learning process has to go around that child. It emphasizes on real world applications. Whatever you're teaching the child should know why and how is it going to be useful to me in life. If I'm learning this, how is it going to help me once I grow up, or once I am going home, back home, I have a takeaway, I go back home, how is it helping me? It should not just remain in school and in the books. It has to come to their mind and practical life. That's competency-based education. So how is this different from the traditional teaching? I would just share a small video. I need to share sound. 1 second. We come to know the difference between the traditional teaching methodology and the competency-based teaching. So now let's come to the nutshell. It all boils down to what is competency. It is the capability to apply or use the set of related knowledge, skills, and abilities required to successfully perform critical work, functions, or tasks. I'll just give you a very simple and common example. Like I'm wearing a sari. I've been wearing sari, I've been draping a sari for so many years at work every day. So now I can wear it in 2 minutes. It's not a difficult task for me. So here I'm proficient. I have a skill set, I have the knowledge and the ability, and I'm proficient. So this is my competency. Now take up a young girl who has just started wearing a sari. She will take hours to drape a sari. She will take a lot of time. Now we all have the knowledge. We all know how to drape a sari. You ask me, we can write on steps how to drape a sari. But that young girl will not be able to drape a sari because she is not very proficient. So despite the knowledge and the fine motor skills, we all have fine motor skills that are required to drape a sari. She would not be able to drape a sari so easily. So we can call her, she is a beginner. Now let us consider other women who occasionally wear sari. So they will take less time than the beginner. Of course, more time than proficient people like me. So then we can call them as progressive. They are progressing in their competency. And people like me can be called proficient. So I hope I've been able to explain the word competency easy. It has nothing to do with age. It has nothing to do with the grade. It is how you're able to use your knowledge, skill, ability, and relate it to the day-to-day life. You are able to use it. Coming to what we are here today for, that is assessment. Now, since the emphasis is on competency, the features of assessment has also changed. One, it has to be regular, formative, and competency-based. We are not just trying to check one kind of aspect of how much the child has learned, but we are trying to check all the learning outcomes that we had decided on when we made the lesson plan. It promotes learning and development of students. The focus of assessment is assessment for learning, not assessment of learning. Means how much more of learning is required that we assess rather than how much has the child attained. We test high order thinking skills, that is analysis, critical thinking, conceptual clarity, etc., rather than just low order thinking skills, which come with rote memorization, asking them questions, which are based on what they've learned. It helps the entire schooling system in revising continuously teaching learning process to optimize learning. So after the assessment, the teacher has to come to know what more is required for the child to learn, and she can change her methodology. She can devise another plan so that the competency that they had wanted to attain, it reaches the level that they have attained. Moving on to the next. So question paper should have 4 essential features. One, it should be based on Bloom's taxonomy. Now, all of us know this, and we've been talking about it. Next, it should assess competencies. Then there should be a variety of questions. Now that we have MCQs, we have true and false, and there are a variety of MCQs and true and false also. Long answer questions, one word question, short answer question. I'll discuss about them. It should measure the attainment of learning outcomes. When we teach a lesson, we decide that after this chapter, after this particular topic, this should be the learning outcome. My student should have understood this. So when you're making a question paper, it should be based on whether those learning outcomes have been attained. So you're trying to measure that. So base your question on the basis of that so that you're able to know whether those learning outcomes have been met. And the language, you should be clear and appropriate. You know, the words that we use to ask a question should tell the child what the child is supposed to write. When you use the word validate, when you use the word substantiate, when you use the word explain, when you use the word evaluate, all these words have a different meaning and they give the child a kind of a trigger that what I need to write. So the language that you use in your question should be clear and appropriate. If it's a very short answer, you just want them to name, so use the word name. List, so that the child only write that much. Explanation, then use certain words which tell the child that I need to go beyond. Beginning with all the key features, first is Bloom's taxonomy. We all know that Bloom's taxonomy in its various forms represent the process of learning. It was developed in 1956 by Benjamin Bloom and has been widely used for specific learning outcomes. And we all are aware of this. It has 6 levels, beginning with remember, understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, and create. Remember is that the child should recognize and recall the facts, that who is the Prime Minister of India, the child has to remember and recall. Then understand, he has to understand the facts, whatever you've told them, put them, apply, apply the facts. For example, we have taught them verbs, we have taught them tenses, we have taught them how to transform a sentence from direct speech to indirect speech. Now we will give them a question that transform the sentence or change the sentence from direct speech to indirect speech. The child is going to use those rules, the concepts that we have taught, apply them, and then change. So such comes apply. Analyze, where they break down the information that has been given. Evaluate, where they judge the value of the information that has been given. And last is create, which is the highest order, where you ask the child to create, to go beyond what has been taught. Then this Bloom's taxonomy, the model was revised in 1990s. It was a new group of psychologists led by Lauren Anderson. He was a former student of Dr. Bloom, and in order to make it relevant to 21st century, he revised the model and he emphasized on what a learner can do. So the levels represented verbs rather than the nouns that were earlier. So it is now remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. Now, I want all the participants to look at this picture carefully. It is going to be on screen for around 30 seconds. I'm going to ask you questions on the basis of this, so please look at the picture carefully. I think that's done. Now, I have some questions based on this picture, and I want you to reply me on the chat box. First question. How many people are there in the picture? Please reply in the chat box. 5, 10, 10, 10, 10. Very good. Wonderful. 10 is the correct answer. Wonderful. 10 is the correct answer. Now, this was on the basis of remembering. Another question. How many ducks were there in the picture? How many ducks? 2. Wonderful. Yes, there were 2 ducks. Again, this question is based on the lowest level. That is remembering. You just remember what you saw in that picture. How many lampposts were there? Lampposts in the picture. Yes, 1 lamppost with 2 lights. Someone has written 2. It is not 2. It is 1 lamppost with 2 lights. So all these questions were on based of remembering. Now bring the picture to you again. I'll ask you some questions which are based on understanding and applying. What's the season in the picture and how can you say? Please reply in the chat box. What is the season in the picture and how can you say? Summer season. How can we say that? People are enjoying in the park. Okay. Ice cream. So you say it is a summer season. Clothing. Yes. Because when we tell the type of clothes people wear, for example, it's an EVS class 3 and 4, we tell the clothes that the people wear. Then we talk about the clothes that they wear. So yes, by the clothing, they can come to know it is summer season. The ice cream that they're eating, we can know that it is a summer season or a spring season. Perfect. All right. Another question. Now on analysis and evaluate. If the child is cycling at the speed of 5 km per hour and the road is 2 km long, I'm talking about this road. This child is cycling at the speed of 5 kilometers per hour and this road is 2 km long. How much time will the child take to reach the other end? When we give such a question, now what has happened? When we give such a question, we have made the child to analyze and evaluate. Yes, I'm getting many answers. There might be many teachers who've done their calculations. And last, for example, the last level, create. You can ask the child to write a story on the basis of the given picture. So what have I done, dear participants? On the same picture, I have made questions on almost touching all the levels of Bloom's taxonomy. So this is a source-based integrated question paper also, you can say. You can give one picture and you can give 5 questions based on 5 or 6 different levels. And it'll decrease the reading time of the child and the child will be able to enjoy the picture and then write the answers. One little example of how to set up a good question paper, putting up such source-based questions. Moving on to the next. We all know the competences that the CBSE is expecting us to judge. Earlier, they used to give us a blueprint of the paper and everything. And they used to tell, of course, there used to be a huge 3 or 4 pages of introduction before the blueprint used to come as what the CBSE expects us to do. But this time with the blueprint, they have given us specifically marked the competencies. So I picked up just random, some sample papers, some curriculum given for class 9th. So in English, for example, you can say that once the child does the reading comprehension, the child should have conceptual understanding, decoding, analyzing, inferring, interpreting, vocabulary, all this the child should know. So we need to make question 1 on concept understanding, another decoding some answer, another on analyzing from the passage only, 1 on interpreting, 1 vocabulary based question. So the question that you make, you have 20 marks. So the question that you make 2, 2, 3, 3, they should touch all the competencies that CBSE expects. Similarly, when you're giving them writing skill and grammar, so we are expected that to teach creative expression, reasoning, justifying, illustrating, appropriacy of style and tone, using appropriate format and fluency, applying conventions, using integrated structures with accuracy and fluency. So when we are doing this now, so at this time, when you're giving them writing skills and grammar, please take note that these are the competencies which I need to judge. So my question should be 2 on this, 2 on basis of this, 2 on basis of this. Like I just made 6 or 7 questions on that picture, touching various competencies and various levels of Bloom's taxonomy. Similar thing can be done here. And if you see, I touched 3 or 4 subjects also in that. I touched EVS, I touched maths, I touched English. We can do that also for the junior classes. Then language through literature. When they're doing literature, of course, recalling will come there. They will have to remember the name of the poet or the poem or whatever you ask them to do. So reasoning, appreciating the poetry, we ask them about poetic devices, applying literary conventions, illustrating and justifying, extract relevant information, identifying the central theme and sub-theme, understanding the writer's message and writing fluently. All these things we need to judge. So before you're making your question paper, please go through this blueprint correctly. This is for maths. How many questions of remembering? They have given the typology of questions. How many remembering, understanding, what applying are we going to apply, analyzing, evaluating, creating, all the levels of Bloom taxonomy have been touched. The marks have been given, the weightage have been given. So please keep this in front of you when you're making the paper so that you're able to touch all that they are expected to know. Same is for science. Demonstrate knowledge and understanding, application of knowledge and concept, formulate, analyze, evaluate, and create. The weightage has been given. The typology of questions have also been given. Very short answers, they should include objective type, a search and reason type question should be there. Then short answers, long answers, source-based, case-based, passage-based, integrated assessment questions. All this they're given. And they've also told how much should be the internal choice. So we all have been through it. It's nothing new that I'm dealing with. I've just picked it up from the CBSE site. But what I want you is that please keep it in front of you with the blueprint and then start making your paper. Now moving on to the various type of questions, the typology, the second part of the good assessment paper. We have objective type questions. Now objective type questions are again of many kinds. We have MCQ, that is multiple choice, true or false, matching type, close or gap filling. Then we have short answer type questions. Now they can be standalone questions or source-based questions. And long answer type questions where we have extended response, we have extrapolative questions, we ask them to create. All the writing skills in English would come in long answer type questions. Now dealing with all these questions one by one. Before that, let's understand the blueprint. The blueprint is a matrix or chart reporting the number of and type of test questions represented across the topics in content area, consistent with learning objective and relative weight on tests given to each topic. We just saw that. The CBSE has given a blueprint, the weightage of the question, the type of question, the competency to be assessed. So it is used to determine which aspect of the domain will be sampled in a particular assessment. What kind of question should be asked? So this helps to match various competencies with the course content and modality of the assessment. This is a sample blueprint. Before you start making your question paper, dear teachers, you must have the type of piece typology in which you have the Bloom's taxonomy written and the kind of question you want to ask: MCQ, SAQ, LAQ, that is multiple choice, short answer question, long answer question, the total marks and the weightage that you're giving. And also these Bloom's taxonomy, all the 6 levels, how many questions are you giving from it? But when you're giving these questions, please see how much time will the child to do. For example, sometimes we give quite a long statement and then we give the child MCQ. You say, oh, it's an MCQ, it should take just 30 seconds. But the reading time that the child takes needs time. So that may take 1 minute because the child will have to read. But in place, you give a picture and then you give 5 MCQ questions on that picture, that would take 30 or 40 seconds only, because once the picture is understood, the child at least in 1 minute will be able to answer 5. So it all depending on the level of the question and the kind of question that you put in the paper. That also has to be taken care of. Now I'll quickly go through the various type of questions that we have, like multiple choice questions. We all know multiple choice question has a statement and 4 options. You can even have 3 options, but 4 is the best. It is a stem. Stem is the question. Options. Then 1 is the correct answer, which is known as the key, and the remaining are distractors. This is a simple MCQ question. Now, MCQ questions can also be based on Bloom's taxonomy. I have taken these from various webinars that I attended of CBSE, seminars that I attended, and various sites where they have given all this. So I've just collected information from there, put them together to give you an idea. So this, for example, this question, vaccination was discovered by, there are 4 key. What are we checking? The child's first level, that is remember. The child has to just learn and remember the name that the child had learned. Another, level 2. In this, we are trying to check how much the child has understood. So there's a question which gives some insight. 2 balls, P and Q of different sizes, are dropped into a cup of water. They both float as shown here. What can be said about these balls? Now there are 4 options. Here the child has to understand and then tick mark the right question. Next level, where the child applies the knowledge. Rena observed that the stain of curry on a white shirt becomes reddish brown when soap is scrubbed on it, but it turns yellow again when the shirt is washed with plenty of water. What might be the reason for her observation? Soap is acidic in nature. Soap is basic in nature. Turmeric is a natural indicator which gives reddish tinge in the bases. Turmeric is a natural indicator which gives reddish tinge in acids. I'm getting a message that PPT got stuck, is it? I don't think so. So here, working there. No, it has not. All right. So in this, the child has to apply the knowledge on the basis of what we've done. The teacher has taught that turmeric is a natural indicator, but how does it work? The teacher must have explained. So here the child is applying that knowledge in the real life situation. Another level, level 4, analyze. If the real image of a candle flame formed by a lens is 3 times the size of the flame and the distance between lens and image is 80 centimeter, at what distance should the candle be placed from the lens? Here the child will analyze the knowledge, the information that he or she was provided in the class. Next level. See, these are all MCQ questions based on the levels of Bloom's taxonomy. Evaluate. Shown here is the extent to which 2 different animals can see in either direction without turning their heads. In animal 1, the eyes are placed toward the front of the head, and in animal 2, the eyes are placed on either side of the head. Since the placement of eyes in the 2 animals is different, their vision is also slightly different. And there's a diagram. Now comes the question. In the figures above, the gray part represents the parts that can be seen by both eyes at a time, whereas the white part represents those parts that can be seen only by one eye at a time. Animal 2 can see a broader area at any time compared to animal 1. Animal 1 can distinguish depths better compared to animal 2. Based on this, which of the 2 animals is most likely to be a predator? Now, teachers, although it's an MCQ question, the reading time is long and the competency that we're checking is pretty high. So we need to give this question a little more time than it is required. Moving on to the next. Last level. Again, an MCQ question on create. Aarti sees that a kulfi pot on the street is wrapped in a red cloth. She thinks that the red cloth helps in maintaining a low temperature inside the pot. She wants to know whether it is the cloth itself, the red color of the cloth, or both which help in achieving this effect. For this, she plans to take identical pots with equal amounts of water, put them out in the sun for 2 hours, and measure their temperature. Which of these setups is the best for experiment? You can see the setups here. Now, out of these, she has to choose one. This is now she has to be creative. She thought about planning this also. She has to think that what will be the best suitable placement for me to do this experiment. This is the highest level of MCQ that we can create. Now moving on to the case-based MCQ questions. Here they will give a case like Noor, a young scientist, was trying to demonstrate some properties of light in a science project. She kept X inside a box as shown in the figure, and with the help of a laser pointer, made light rays pass through the holes on one side of the box. She had a small butter paper screen to see the spots of light being cast as they emerge. Now the question is, what could be X she placed inside the box to make the rays behave as shown? Now here we have given a case, so this is a case-based MCQ questions. Certain MCQ questions have a different level of competency that is checked, so they will need more weightage of marks and at least more time given to it. Another, on the same question, she measured the angles of incidence for both the rays on the left side of the box to be 48.6. She knew the refractive index of the material of the object inside the box was given as 1.5. If one wanted to know the approximate value of the angle of refraction, it would be. So on the same case, there's another MCQ. Furthermore, on the same case that we have done earlier, she asked her audience a few questions and noted down the main response from them, which are as follows. And hence she notes down and then she has to answer. So we have to then finally choose from the following combination of the above statement, which is correct. Can you see on the same case, we have made 3 to 4 questions. So now that kind of a case-based question, although is MCQ, should have more weightage because the reading time and the time that the child will take to analyze is more. And we have to cater to average, above average, and below average student. So keeping an average student in sight, we need to give that much time that the child will take to read, analyze, and then give answers. Every MCQ is not a straightforward answer. Moving on to the other type of short answer type questions, which is true and false. Now we can have true and false, which are simple, like the flame test color for potassium is lilac, true or false. Or we can have an MCQ kind of a true and false question. Which of the following helped to reduce the number of plastic bags used in UK from 2006 to 2008? A change in the attitude of the public, major supermarkets encouraging the idea of a bag for life, an increased volume in supermarket sales, the introduction of the 2008 Climate Change Act. So now the answer is if 1 and 2 only are true, if 1 and 3 only are true, if 2 and 4 only are true, if only 2 and 4 are true. So this is a true and false question, but it is an MCQ kind true and false question. Another, assertion and reasoning question. It is on level 5. Such true and false questions, which are assertion reasoning, they come to the level 5. They're not the first or the second level question. They're high order thinking skills. The assertion, the statement is potassium is stored in oil. And the reason given is that potassium is an alkali metal in group 1 of the periodic table. So the first option is assertion and reason both are correct, and the reason explains the assertion. Assertion and reason both are correct, but reason doesn't explain assertion. Assertion is correct, but reason is incorrect. Assertion and reason both are incorrect. All the teachers who've been teaching 10th and 12th last year must have practiced various assertion reasoning questions with the children, because that was the time of question that were coming in the exams. And it was quite an eye-opener and new thing, but not very difficult to make them understand how to do. They need to first understand the statement and make up their mind whether it is right or wrong. Then they need to look at the reason, make up their mind whether it is right or wrong, and then whether both of them are connected. Evaluate another. We have closed gap filling questions. Out of this is also of level 5. As the temperature dashed during the summer season, many households turn to air conditioners to keep them cool. Air conditioners, which are once regarded as a residential luxury, have now become a dash. Now, in this, we are checking the grammar as well as a little knowledge about science. So here, out of the options given, the child has to select, but the level that we have given is level 5. After the MCQ part is over, moving on to the short answer type questions. Simple questions for level 1, that is, remember. What are atoms and molecules? The child has learned the definition and he would write. How would you define an adjective? What is the formula for calculating the circumference of a circle? What would you use to douse a fire? Who was the inventor of bulb? What is the total of 6 plus 8 minus 2? All these are remembering questions which fall under level 1. Level 2. How would you differentiate between radial and a necklace cell? Now the difference is chemical and electrolyte, but the child has to write both of them. How would you differentiate between acid and base? They have to talk about the chemical properties. How would you express your concern on depletion of ozone layer? Now it's a general awareness question where the child would understand the environment, how it acts as a blanket. Find the word in the passage which implies fascinated intention. If the child has done the poem, he'll be able to write the word, which means it's vocabulary based. Find the remainder of by long division method, that is 6, 5, 7, 8 is divided by 3, or any set division methods. These are level 2, where the child has to take a little time, understand the concept the child has learned and use it. Level 3 questions. How would you present your project to the house? Now it's a case study. A case has been given and the child has asked business studies to present it. So this is the level 3 because the child will analyze. Change the following statement into indirect speech. As I spoke about it earlier, the teacher has told the rules about the verbs and the tenses, how the transformation takes place. When you're given a sentence to the child will have to apply all of them and then use it. So this is the third level of question. What other way would you choose to explain water cycle? Now they have to give a practical example. They can use that example of boiling water and putting up a plate on the steamer so that it condenses also. The whole process has to be explained. So it can be asked in geography or science. Solve the problem given below. All the long problem sums, one man takes these hours to make a wall. How many hours will 3 men take to make a wall? All such problem-based, problem-based questions come into level 3 of maths. What logic will you apply to fill up the block in the puzzle? The puzzle is given as a clue, like we give a square, a triangle, a circle, square, triangle, circle, square, triangle, circle, circle, and ask the child to put the next two. So this is a level 3 kind of a question. Short answer type question for level 4. How can you classify animals according to bone structure? This is a question from biology where the differentiation between the animals and how they are classified has to be given. In geography, when you ask them, how can you compare the different parts of the soil? Or what explanation do you have for digesting vegetarian and non-vegetarian food? They have to talk about the digestive system, the juices, and all other things that are involved in digestive. How is water table connected to rain? A simple question of EBS. Justify the title of the lesson, Rat Trap, from class 12th English. The lesson has been read and explained. The basic concept has been taught. So now the child should be able to justify why the lesson is called Rat Trap. How will you prove that straight line is the shortest distance between 2 points? So where you are giving the question with how, and you're making the child to think from their point of view and write, that becomes level 4. Level 5, again, short answer type questions. Explain the reason behind the decision taken by the poet to travel the road less traveled. You poem in class 9. How would you generate a plan to conduct an inter-school debate function, entrepreneurship, if the topic is there? What facts can you gather that prove that Evans was held by an insider in the prison? English class 12. What is biodiversity? Why is it important for human life? It's biology and geography. All the 8 sums of maths. The father was double the age of his child. After 20 years, the father is triple the age of his child. What is the age of the child? All these 8 sums of maths come under level 5. Describe 3 major problems that are faced by weaving and processing sector in cotton industry. Social studies. What fact you gather from an elementary school classroom in Islam about slums? This is another question from English. I'm just giving you some samples of the short answer type questions that can be asked. Level 6. What would you have done had you been in place of? Now you ask the child to think and create an answer on his own. How would you improve? What would have happened if? How could you have ended the story differently? What way would you design? Now these questions can be asked in English, in Hindi, in maths, in any other way. You can put a value to it. You can ask the child to think differently. You can ask the child to think out of the box and make another ending of a particular poem or story or any concept, whatever. But these come in the level 6 where the child has to go beyond the textbook and create an answer on his own. Short answer type question can also be short. source based. Now, this is the source. I will not read the entire of it. So like you can give them a passage. It can be any subject, not necessarily in English. You can have short source based short answer questions in any subject, give them a passage and then give them question on the basis of that passage. Now they can be simpler questions when you want to check level 1, or they can be some hot question and you want to check the higher order things, technical skills, and you want to check the level 3, 4 and 5. So you can give them a source in English, in social studies, in science and business studies. Any case, any such source can be given. Even that picture that I used in the beginning can be used as a source. Another source-based question, again, these are little level above, and we have given a short passage about the glass houses and greenhouse effect, and then we ask them the question. The question can be of 1 mark. If you think the question needs a little more of thinking, you can give that question for 2 marks. So for a simple source, it's not necessary that all the question that you give should be of 1 mark. They can be 1 mark, 2 mark, and so on question, depending on the kind of level of question that you have picked up. So I would like to finish up this. I'm not here to give you examples of how to make questions. You all have your textbooks and the learning outcomes that you plan. Basic thing is, teachers, that the keyword that you need to use when you're framing the question paper. If you want to check the first level, that is remember, then use questions like list, recite, outline, define, name, match, quote, recall, identify, label, recognize. With these words, the child knows that he has to simply write the answer to what the child remembers. Understand, describe. As soon as you use the word describe, you're asking the child to understand something and write. Excuse me. Explain, paraphrase, restate, give original examples of, summarize, contrast, interpret, discuss. All these words tell the child that they have to understand. This is the second level that he has to use. Third level, apply. If you want them to apply, then you have to use words like calculate, predict, apply, solve, illustrate, use, demonstrate, determine, model, perform, present. Use these words in your question paper. Then the child will understand, okay, this is the level I need to answer for. When it is analyze, use the word like classify, break down, categorize, analyze, diagram, illustrate, criticize, simplify, associate, and there are many more. Evaluate, the next level, you can say choose, support, relate, determine, defend, judge, grade, compare, contrast, argue, justify, support, convince, select, evaluate, substantiate, validate, and so on. There's so many words that can be used. And when it is create, then you need to use words like design, formulate, build, invent, create, compose, generate, derive, modify, and develop. Use these keywords in your day-to-day teaching so that the child knows that these are the words. Now, we have to come out of those era where we used to how, what, when, by, where. These are the words we were using. We have to use these kinds of words to make the child understand that what he has to write, and we also will be able to check the competency level of which competency have they been able to reach. So in short, to end it up, I would like to say the basic points to remember while making a question paper is, in order to make our questions as clear as possible, we would select the right command words. I just gave you a list of command words that should be used. Then the command word should link to the assessment objective. That means the competency you want to assess. So according to the Bloom's taxonomy and the competency, two in together, you need to decide the word that you should use so that the child is able to understand and give that kind of answer. You want to know something else, your question says something else, the child writes something else, there is no relation, so the point of assessment is not met. They should make clear to students about the task that they need to do. So the keyword itself, the question word itself should tell what they need to do. They need to create, they need to evaluate, they need to justify what they need to do. There should be a mixture of questions based on high order and low order thinking skills. We have a class with average, above average, below average students, and of course, some very genius prodigy also. So the competency that we assess, the weightage has been given, but the level of question, according to Bloom's taxonomy that you asked, should be that it should be a moderate one which caters to all. So there should be some questions which are simple, some questions which are of the moderate level, some little high, that is little hard, and some out of the box. One or two questions out of the box which make the genius or the bright students stand out from the remaining students. Otherwise, where will they get the chance to prove? So you need to make a question paper which caters to all the kind of children that you have in the class. And the marks awarded to each question should be on the basis of the time a child will take to give the answer. That means the reading time and the assessing time, the level of that question that you've asked. So the mind assessment time also has to be calculated. Not like us. We read the question, we know the answer, we write it. We are teachers, we've been doing it 100 times. And we think, why is the child not able to understand this? But we have done it 100 times for the child. It is the first time. Second time, we might have read the chapter so many times because every year we are teaching the same chapter. But what about the children? They are reading it for the first or the second time. I remember every word that is written in CBSE class 10th and 12th textbooks. I can tell on that page, that paragraph, this word is there. Because I've been teaching that chapter since so long. Every year I'm teaching it 5 to 6 times. Not the child. So the child will take time. He will not be able to understand it as easily as we are able to understand. And last but not the least, which is not written here, teachers, when you're making the question paper, please make the marking scheme, the answer scheme side by side. Sometimes we give a question, we think it is easy, but when we solve it later, we realize, oh, this has become tough. It is not a direct answer. So whatever subject, English, Hindi, math, science, social studies, Sanskrit, whatever subject you are teaching and you're making a question paper, remember 3 things. 1, keep the blueprint provided by CBSE. Second, keep the learning outcomes that when you taught the chapter in your mind, that these are the learning outcomes I had made up in my lesson plan and I need to assess them. Third, when you make the question paper, keep all the competency and the Bloom's taxonomy level in mind and the level of children of your class. What is the level of the children of your class? Keep that also in mind. And then when you're making the question paper, write one question here, write the answer and the answer scheme. Another question here, write the answer and the answer scheme, and then read your question. You read your question paper before giving them the weightage of marks, how much of reading time is taken. The biggest mistake that most of the evaluators and people make when they're making the question paper is that they forget that the child has only 3 hours. We may give them 30 questions in 3 hours, but then the reading time has to be less. The child's reading capacity and capability is lesser than us. They're not that competent. They will take time to read and assess. So either you give them pictures or you give them such question where there's one source and there are 3 or 4 or 5 questions, so that the child has to read that little paragraph only once and then they can answer. You give them a huge paragraph, or for each source-based question, you give them another paragraph. It is going to take make it very, very difficult to the children. So keep all these in mind. Keep the marking scheme in hand. Write the answer as soon as you write the question in one piece of paper, write the answer in another piece of paper, another question, another answer, and then read your question paper, give them the weightage. If you think you've given more question then that can be solved in 3 hours, please remove. Make it less. Quality, not quantity. The quality of the question paper makes a good question paper, not the quality of the question. So that's all from here. Remember, teachers, good assessments are made, not born. And you are the ones who can make it. Thank you. With that, I'll stop sharing my screen. And anybody who has any question to ask can ask me in the chat box. I can even unmute. Can they unmute themselves? I'll just ensure that you can unmute yourself. Allow participants to unmute themselves. There it is. Now you can unmute yourself and speak if you want to say anything.
Good evening, ma'am. This is Veena Prakash from Campaign School, Bhopal.
Good evening.
Well-planned session, ma'am. Excellent. You have left no room to ask any question. You have explained everything very clearly. Absolutely great. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much. This was all efforts of Matthew sir asking me to take up this topic, though I was a little hesitant, but then I thought I should. If it can
thank you, Matthew sir, also.
If it can make the work of the teachers easier, I would be very happy. that it make the work of the teachers easier and even the children easier. They will not be so taxed.
Thank you,
Ma'am,
ma'am.
this is Anjula. I'm Anjula from Bangalore. Just wanted to
Yes,
ask you about the sources. Since we don't get a lot of time to prepare it ourselves, do we have some reliable sources from where we can get such kind of questions?
See, madam, if you're taking classes 6th and above, then CBSE already has put certain sources in its academic site. You open the site, you'll find many sources. There are so many sample papers that they've given from 6th and above. Then there's a Diksha portal, which also has lot of sources, and they're all up to the level. And if you consider junior level, like for primary, from 1st to 5th, then you have various books. You can give small questions, or you can take your own book as a source and give them. For example, in English, you can take up a passage from EVS book and make questions. So it is, there's no harm. You can make questions on it. The thing is, the child has to read and understand that concept. Okay, you've taken water cycle from science and given a question and given 5 questions in English on it. You're testing the child's English plus a basic knowledge. So he'll be very happy, giving an answer because he knows it. It's not an unseen passage for him. It's a source-based question. There's a difference between the two, right?
Yeah, thank you so much. That's a wonderful idea. Thank you.
Anybody else? I think there are no more questions. I'll just read the chat box in case there are any questions in the chat box which I need to answer.
Ma'am, good evening, ma'am.
Yes, and good evening.
Just one question from the English department here. I'm from
Yes,
Delhi here. I just wanted
Yes,
to know if you could help us with a few examples from the English. Most of the examples were from the science section and all that. If something which you could tell us about the type of questions in the English subject.
You're asking the person who's been HOD English all these years and then became a principal. So English is my
Same here,
subject. Yes. So what kind of question do you want me to give you an example for MCQ, or you're asking for short answers, or what do you want to know?
I'm talking about the analytical ones.
Analytical ones. The grammar questions are basically analytical ones in English.
No, I'm talking about especially 12th class. I'm talking about 12th class where there's no grammar testing.
Where there's no grammar. All right. In that, the question that we give now, how would you end the story? Or do you think you can say, for example, we have the face of it, we have Mr. Lamb and the other boy called Derry. So do you think Derry was right in his opinion that everybody who looks at me feels the same way? Because Derry was facing self-rejection. Thought that everybody who looks at him doesn't like it. So when you give them such questions,
I have just one query here. Would you call this
Yes.
as an analytical question, or because they're all open-ended questions? And
No. Please continue that I'll answer.
what I mean to say is that they are all open-ended questions, and we make the child to think on a particular aspect, and the child writes his or her point of view, and the child may go either positive or negative. But if the child is giving us sufficient evidence from the story, I think we need to accept it. So there's nothing wrong and there's nothing right like that.
Absolutely, because it is child's opinion. But when I'm giving you analysis, then he has to give us, it is kind of substantiate. He has to give you an answer from the question said. Yes, I think Derry was right in thinking that he is rejected by people because he has heard his own relatives speak so. So I'm not giving it as an open-ended or a creative question. I'm giving it as an analysis part. He analyzes why Derry feels so, and he has to give answers from because there must be hint, in the chapter itself. Like
Yeah,
trap.
absolutely.
Why does he think the entire world is a rat trap? What made him think so? Because he had to face this kind of, people did not like him. He had nobody to think. So then he started analyzing people as they are falling into a trap and enjoying his life. So here, when I'm giving you the question of analysis, he has to give answer from the text.
Okay.
Geeta ma'am, may I add
so much, ma'am.
one more example? Geeta ma'am, may I add one more example?
Yes, yes.
Ma'am, from the chapter Indigo, when we have why is it the turning point in Gandhiji's life, and why is it the turning point in the freedom struggle? These two questions are analytical, absolutely
Yes.
analytical for this particular chapter. So the child will have to understand that the same episode becomes turning point for two things: one for Gandhiji's life and one for the freedom struggle, because that's when he decided. So here the child analyzes and then gives you the answer.
Absolutely right. Sonia ma'am, thank you.
Thank
We
you.
have another teacher of English here. She's the vice principal of the school, and hence she's the right person to answer this. Thank you, Sonia ma'am. Absolutely right answer. Thank you for helping.
Thank
Anybody
you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Geeta madam.
else?
Geeta
Yes, sir.
madam, I have a question.
Yes,
In
ma'am.
unseen passages and analytical passages, in a MCQs, now sometimes all the four answers seem all right. How to analyze and write the correct answer?
No, that's the beauty. Now we have to give them those four options. Out of them, one has to key and the other are distractors. That is why they're called distractors. If they all are not similar, and if they do not make the child to think, then they will not be called distractors. But then, of course, there's one correct answer, which depends on the question. If you give me an example, I'll be able to take. They might be confusing, but there's always one correct answer.
But do they get marks if they answer? If they feel whatever the answer, do they get marks for that?
No, because there has to be absolutely one correct answer. A correct question. Any MCQ will have only one correct answer with three distractors. Now, distractors will be similar. That is why they're called distractors, but there has to be one correct answer. And whoever has made the question paper will have a reason why he or she considers this to be the right answer. That is what I said. That when you paper, there should be a marking.
That
In
needs
the
a deep
CBSE
analytical.
In the CBSE also, when you have a marking scheme, there is also a reason why this is considered a correct answer. So when you are making a paper yourself for your board classes or any other class, with your question paper, make a marking scheme and please write why are you considering this as the right answer, because you'll have to justify it to your students.
Yes. Okay.
Namaskar, Geeta ma'am. This is Vijay Sharma from Jan Bharti Mrigavati Vidyalaya. Ma'am, I would like to ask in the chapter Rat Trap. So the iron master refers to his friend as other time Niels Olof. So why two for the same person?
I'm sorry, I couldn't get the question. Please repeat. There was a breakage of voice.
Ma'am, I'm asking that in the chapter Rat Trap.
Yes.
Ma'am, am I audible? So
yes, you're audible. Please mute yourself. Yes, Vijay, please go on.
Ma'am, I was asking that in the chapter Rat Trap, the Ann Master calls his regimental comrade at Niels Olof, and another time he calls him Captain Von Stell. So why two names for the same person, or is it one name?
It is one name. One must be the formal name that was used in the regiment. One must be the name by which these people called each other. The buddy name kind of a name, but it is the same person.
So it's one name actually.
Yes, it is a name for the same.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Given him the title of captain because Edla gives him the title of a captain. She treated him as a captain, and that is how she was able to redeem him, and he transformed himself. So that's how he became a captain. He was not formally a captain. He was not formally a captain, but she raised him to the level of a captain.
Ma'am, that's right. That I know, but I was asking about the two different names. So that ma'am, Geeta ma'am is clear. That's the same two names of the same name. That is one name, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. We will have another session where all these things will be discussed. I think some other resource person is taking it. I would have loved to take a session on class 12th English because I'm very fond of it. But I think some other resource person will take it and it will be solved. And if nothing of that sort happen, we all English teachers can get together. Sonia ma'am, we all can get together and another webinar on this, right?
Anytime.
Yes.
Ma'am, Sumati here.
Yes, Sumati.
Yeah, after a long time attending your webinar, really wonderful session, ma'am. Thank you so much. And thank you, Matthew sir, as well. I was like eagerly expecting AI webinar. Actually, after this, we have just started not to connect. That's what I was feeling for it. But thank you once again to AIF team for connecting this. And I have a quick query here. When I went through this question paper class 10, they had given this analytical paragraph in a different way. They didn't give any pictures or any bar graph or pie chart or something like that. Is that like in that way they will be framing the question paper?
I have not seen actually. As I was preparing for this webinar and I was opening up my Zoom meeting, there were messages and messages that CBSE has released a sample paper. I just came to know it has been released, but I have not seen it yet. So once I go through it, then we can discuss this. And remember, Sonia ma'am, we had taken up a session where we decoded the sample papers last year.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. That was in before this essay. Yes, essay 1.
Yeah, so we can do the same now. Now that the sample paper has come, we can take a webinar on decoding this sample paper also with the other two resource person that we had.
Yes, ma'am. Shubha ma'am and Rubadi are here too.
Yes, yes. So, ma'am,
Yes,
and once we do that, once we go through the sample paper and we are prepared, we can have a session on that perfectly. But right now, we both, I have not seen it yet. So whatever has come fresh, we will deal with the problems later. Anything else that you would like to know?
Good evening, Gita ma'am.
Because discussion on English subject is endless.
Okay. Very good evening to everyone.
Good evening, Shubha.
Good evening, ma'am. It was a wonderful session. It was such a wonderful session that it did not leave any kind of doubt and any kind of confusion which could be left.
Right.
So much clarity, you explained everything.
Thank you
Awesome,
very
ma'am.
much, Shubha. Thanks, Sonia ma'am here, who was my savior at the last minute, giving me some help with some questions. Thank you, Sonia. And Shubha and Rupali, I feel incomplete without you, so we'll take another session when we four are together.
Definitely, ma'am.
It's
Definitely.
an
And your
honor for
session,
us to hear, ma'am.
excellent session, Geeta ma'am.
Thank you, Rupali. Thanks a lot.
Congratulations for taking up the session successfully.
Thanks. You are taking up the second part, right?
Yeah, right, ma'am.
Please go ahead from where I left.
Sure, ma'am. Thank
All
you,
right. So I
ma'am.
think, thanks a lot. So I think I need to end this meeting. I'll be sharing the recording very soon in the group. And thank you very much for being here. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Geeta ma'am, for the session.
Thank you, Geeta
ma'am.
Thank you so
Thanks.
much, ma'am.
Thank you.
First session, but I enjoyed thoroughly. It was very
Thanks
nice.
a lot, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a
Thank
lot.
you very much,
My
ma'am,
day.
for such a session. Many takeaways.
Thank you very much. That's nice.